have a whiskey enthusiast in your life that you'd love to give a bottle to but don't know where to start? I polled 18,000 people in a Facebook group and came up with 10 can't miss gift ideas. Stay tuned after the break and we'll talk about them. So full disclosure, even though I did poll technically 18,000 people in the PA Bourbon Squad, not everybody got back to me, not even probably 10%, honestly. But there was, I think, some good discussion. There was a good amount of bottles in that list. It took 17 bottles that my friends and I kind of crowd shared into an idea, and then we used the group to whittle it down. There were some bottles that received little to no votes, some bottles that received a lot of votes. So I took that and I whittled it down to 10, and we're going to talk about it in terms of price points. So starting at the $30 price point, going all the way up to $100, depending on what you want to spend. And honestly, I'm going to actually give you an 11th bottle, and that is one that's a bit more budget than the rest of them. And that is Evan Williams 1783, I think, is the best budget bottle under $20. Now, some people might argue it's Evan Williams bottled in bond. That one tastes a little bit grassy to me, but the 1783 is a taste above its proof and above its price point. I think it's great, especially at that $20 price point. So if you're looking for something a little bit cheaper that you can find pretty much everywhere, I think Evan Williams 1783. But that's not technically on the list. That's just kind of a bonus nugget for you. So the list starts at $30, and the first bottle on the list is Early Times Bottled in Bond. Now, that is not everywhere. Pennsylvania has only seen it once, but I think in a lot of states, it's pretty available. It's soon going to be turned over from being distillate from Early Times through Brown-Forman to being distilled at Barton 1792, although they're saying it will retain the same 79% corn, 11% rye, 10% malted barley mash bill, so it should retain a lot of its flavor. Barton, to me, is always good, especially at the cheap end. It's one that you can find for 25 to 30 bucks for a 1 liter bottle, so it is actually, honestly, if you're factoring the rest of these being 750 milliliters into account, almost $20 for a 750. I think it's fantastic. I've had multiple bottles. All of them have been, in my opinion, competing with bottles that are much more expensive, including one that was left off this list, which is Heaven Hill Bottled in Bond. So starting off with Early Times Bottled in Bond, it is not available everywhere, but there are places that you can buy it online if you are in Pennsylvania and you want to know where they are. Just shoot me a message, go into my link tree, email me at gentlemanandwhiskey@gmail.com. I don't want to share it publicly online because it is technically illegal to ship into the state of Pennsylvania, as recently evidenced by Sealbox being kept out of the state, although that is now back. I think there's precedent for it, so just send me an email and I'll get back to you. So next one on the list is also not a Pennsylvania bottle, and that is Cooper's Craft 100. It is available, I'm pretty sure, everywhere but Pennsylvania. So I'm not really sure why that is. It's just PA being PA, but it is available in every single one of our surrounding states, and it is fantastic. So the stick of that is that they carve grooves into the barrels, so it technically has a higher wood to whiskey ratio, which causes it to mature more rapidly than other standard barrels, yada, yada, yada. It works, honestly. It is a very tasty $40, sub $40 bottle, somewhere in there, usually like 36, 38 is where I see it. Everybody loves it. I have not heard one person say a negative thing about it. Cooper's Craft 100 is the bottle that I think you can't miss with. Moving up a tier, and there's going to be a subset of people who yell at me for this not being the consensus favorite. Wild Turkey Rare Breed at the $50 price point is fantastic. It's 116.8 proof. It is obviously Wild Turkey. I believe 6 to 8 years old is what they say. It's a great bottle. It should be around that $50 mark. It's available pretty much everywhere, including Pennsylvania. And people that love Wild Turkey love it. I will say, for those who don't necessarily love Wild Turkey or are just getting into it, there is a funk to turkey products that has a little bit of like a copper pennies or like an orange marmalade or sometimes even like a weird leather to it. And that is just Wild Turkey's pot stills. That's what it tastes like. That's their thing. Rare Breed to me is a almost like cola bomb, like it kind of has a Coca-Cola flavor to it, and I enjoy that. And I think a lot of whiskey enthusiasts would be happy to get that bottle no matter what your level is. If they're a newer enthusiast or if they're somebody who doesn't necessarily like higher proof stuff, maybe shy away from this release. I think pretty much everybody else, it's going to be right there. Next one on the list, and actually the most voted for in our poll, is Woodford Reserve Double Oaked. Now, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked is about $60. It is Woodford Reserve. It is what they call a finished product. That means that it is finished maturation, and then they put it into another barrel to impart extra flavor into it. So double oaked generally means that that second barrel is also a charred barrel, or it is a toasted then charred barrel. In this case, it is just a second charred barrel. And the reason for this is because a lot of your flavor, a lot of your color, a lot of the maturation comes in the first year or two of a freshly charred virgin barrel. Putting it into a second barrel basically supercharges that aging, so you get a 8-year-old product that can taste like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old product, or a 6-year-old that tastes like an 8-year-old. So Woodford Double Oaked, I think, is one that a lot of people really enjoy because it was one of the first on the scene with this finishing product. I don't love that it's only 90.4 proof, but I think it's a good bottle, and the votes speak for itself. It was, I think, 40% of the votes. I think that's pretty convincing for a can't miss that anybody would like to get it as a gift. So if you want a pretty safe bet, Woodford Reserve Double Oaked is as close, I think, as you can get. Moving on, still kind of in that $60 price range, is Knob Creek 12. Now, this is one that I don't necessarily love. I think it's got a lot of the flavors that I don't like in bourbon, but there's a good amount of people who do like it, and it is $60. It's a 12-year age stated product. Generally, the rule of thumb is with age statements, it's $10 per year, so you'd expect it to cost $120, only costs $60-ish. So that is one that I think is a great value. I just don't love it, personally. It's up to taste. That's one to consider if you're looking in that $60 price range, or if you know somebody who wants maybe a little bit more proof than Woodford Double Oaked. Moving on to the $70-ish price range, you can find it cheaper some places. Old Forester 1920. So this is part of their Whiskey Row series. It is 115 proof, and I think it's one of those whiskeys that can really kind of broaden your horizons to higher proof whiskey. It is only 115 proof, which is hot to some. To me, I drink generally in the 120 to 130 range. So it is, I think, a gateway to being able to handle the higher proof whiskey, and it's very tasty. Personally, I enjoy some of them more than others, and there's no way to tell on the bottle which batch you're getting. I am to the point where I'm not buying them anymore, but I think they're very good whiskey, especially as a gift. However, the next one on the list is Larceny Barrel Proof, and they're around the $70 range too. They're one that I think I would rather have, but that's partly because they are generally higher proof. If the person you're buying for is a, let's say, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, Woodford Reserve, Wild Turkey 101 even maybe, standard drinker, probably don't buy this for them. It is a cask strength or barrel proof, which means it is high proof. Generally, they're above 120. Some go as high as, I think, 130. They are a batch product, so they run an A, B, and C batch every year, and they're different proofs and have a slightly different taste profile. Probably doesn't matter which one you get. There are critics who say C batches are better than A batches. If you see one in the store, pick it up. I think it's a great gift idea, especially at the $70 price point. I think it's competing with much more expensive whiskey, personally. I tend to like the higher proof batches, so if you get something that's more along the lines of like a 128, 129, something like that, as opposed to a 115 to 120, those are my favorites, but there are people who like lower proof stuff who are going to say the opposite of me. So I think it's probably good, especially if you're trying to buy a gift, to at least ask, hey, what do you normally drink? Or, take a picture of what their cabinet is like. Do a little recon. The next one on the list is also a high proof one, although it's probably, out of this entire list, the one that I would most like to get for a gift. And it is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof, and it can be either the Tennessee whiskey or the rye. I think they're both fantastic. And honestly, I like the rye a little bit better just because I think it cuts down on that sweetness a little bit. The rye was just released last year, and actually it was Gentleman & Whiskey's top whiskey of 2023. I think they're all pretty fantastic. I have not had a bad single barrel. Either one of them is a great pickup. $70-ish range. Generally, the proof goes from low 120s. I've seen some as high as 140. It's available most places, and you can kind of maybe pick the proof point that you are more looking for, because there is a broad range available. Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof, Tennessee whiskey or rye, and then moving up a price tier, and actually this one surprised me, we're about $80 here, and that is Russell's Reserve Single Barrel. Now, some of them you can get for less expensive, maybe even like $60, $65. Store picks are gonna sometimes be more expensive, especially if they are a rick house that is highly sought after, like a Camp Nelson or even sometimes a Tyrone. But they're especially the off-the-shelf ones even, I think they can be a great value. I think even sometimes I trust the off-the-shelf ones more than I trust store picks because I never know who's picking for a store single barrel. So I think I maybe even trust the ones off the shelf as master distiller picks even more. And I think I would recommend those go. But I mean, I think something like 20% of our vote went to Russell's Reserve Single Barrel, which was one I didn't even think of. Actually, my buddy Vin had the idea on that one. Ultimately, it's close to the end of our list price-wise, and I think it's one that a lot of people are going to enjoy. It's wild turkey, just like the rare breed, but it's kind of dialed up. Even though they're 110 proof, they generally are jam-packed with flavor, as are most of the Russell's Reserve products. Finally on our list, this is our $100 bottle, and it's one that I think, especially if you do not like high-proof whiskey, do not even think about this one, and that is Booker's. So they run 4 batches a year, and actually they have special products now. They have a Booker's Reserve out that is a little bit more expensive. I think it's like $125, something like that. It's slightly older. It's in the 8-year range as opposed to the 6 and 7s. Most batches of Bookers are in the 6 to 7 year range. They're usually between 120 and 130 proof, and there's 4 a year. I think, especially with the box that they come in, is a very decorative. It's great for gifting, and honestly, it's great for wrapping too if you want to wrap it because it is square edges. Usually generally pretty available. I think it's probably a little bit overpriced, at least for my tastes. You can make a lot of arguments for it, but as a gift, I think a lot of whiskey enthusiasts would love to have it because it's not one that they're going to step out and buy for themselves, but it's one that's going to give a lot of good flavor profiles and a lot of great taste. I think Booker's is kind of the pinnacle for me of what I would like to get as a gift, and it's more expensive than I necessarily want to pay. It's a gift, so it doesn't matter what it costs, at least not to me. Probably matters to you. So I would love to hear from the community. If you are a whiskey enthusiast, what bottles you would love to get as gifts. Drop a comment if you agree with any of these on the list. If you don't agree, drop your suggestions there as well. Also, generally give price points to help those who don't know what they're doing. If you want to support the channel, we've got YouTube membership options. If you click the join button, it'll tell you all that you get with that. We have a Patreon coming, which will be a sticker club and a sample club. Hoping to have that launched here very soon, maybe even this weekend. You can check out our merch store. We've got Glens, we've got hats, we've got shirts. We have a limited edition Santa shirt, which is super cool, and a matching Mrs. Claus. So if you are a couple or even just a single who wants either the male or female version, we have both. So thanks to Sherry from the Bourbon Besties for that idea. It was a lot of fun to make, and I'm super excited with how they came out. So check the link in the description for our merch store. If you like this content, check out our other videos. Please like and comment on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. And we hope you'll join us in drinking like a gentleman. Cheers. If you like any on this list, definitely, echo that. I said echo like I'm a Christian because I am. Like I go to church all the time. I want to echo that. There's a very small subset of people that are going to get that joke and they're going to laugh hysterically. So